Hey everyone, Ben here again with Colin, and
What's up, guys?
we're doing some tech again. So this time I think he has a cool little treat for you. This is something in my personal opinion, I believe that could save you some money in the long run. A lot of people, when they have this issue, they tend to just go to the hobby shop and buy new replacements and be done with it. So I'm gonna let Colin take it over. I'm not gonna give away what it is. So.
Well, I mean, you guys can probably see what's on the table here. We're going to do a little bearing maintenance today. And I've got this tool from RPM. It's called the Bearing Blaster. I believe it's right around $10 for this tool. You do not need this to clean your bearings. Repeat, you do not need it. It makes life a lot easier if you have it, though. And I'm going to show you exactly how to use it right in this video here today. So I showed you guys the RPM bearing blaster. That's what I have here. It's a two-part design. Short of the bearing blaster, I've got three other things, including the bearing. I have a little oiler here, hobby knife, and then also our Nitro Force Nitro Clean. And this is what we're actually going to be using to clean the bearing with. And I believe a can of this is right around 10 bucks. If you don't have this, you can use brake clean, although it's a little bit harsher. The Nitro Clean works very well. I do recommend it. So starting off, we're going to set the bearing blaster aside. We're going to set the oiler aside as well as the Nitro Clean, and start with the bearing and the hobby knife. This bearing here is a 5x11. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with it. It's used in a lot of different vehicles. Very common size. This is just your common rubber sealed. This one is from Boca Bearings. A little step above your standard stock bearing. Anyway, we'll go ahead and jump right in here. The first step we need to do is actually pull the rubber seal off of the bearing, and we're just going to go right around the inside. I like to go on the inside and just pry up slightly with the hobby knife and just work my way around.
Don't cut your fingers.
Don't cut your fingers. Okay, and that just popped right off. You can see inside of there, this is a brand new bearing. It's actually packed with grease. And some people will actually take brand new bearings, blow the grease out, and replace it with oil. There's a couple different reasons they can do that, or reasons why they do that. Number one is it reduces the resistance, the rolling resistance, and you'll get a little higher RPM out of the bearing going with the oil over the grease. The other reason, some people think it attracts more dirt. I don't really have any feelings one way or another, but it does increase the RPM of the bearing if you do remove the grease. Then we're just going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. We're going to pop this seal right off. Again, I go in from the inside, work my way around about halfway or so, and the seal just pops itself right off. Just like that. We'll set the seals aside for now, and we'll move over to the bottom portion of our bearing blaster. Very simple. The bearing just sits right on this cone here, just like that. And then we have our top portion that closes it off, just like that. That's it. Very simple. Now we take our Nitro Force Nitro Clean, and we have our straw extension here. It's just going to go right down into the tip of the bearing blaster here, and you're going to hold this down and squeeze gently. And it's basically going to blow all that grease out of the bottom of the bearing. And I usually hold for about 5 to 10 seconds depending on just how dirty the bearing was. Again, this being a new bearing, very clean. We'll go ahead and pull this off. Still a little bit of grease in there, but for the most part, most of it is blown out. From here, I'll take the bearing off of the bearing blaster. Sorry, go ahead and zoom in there.
Wanted to get a little close up of that.
We'll dollop
This
the
is
grease
the first time
in.
I've seen this thing work, so I'm impressed.
So from there, time constraints, we're not going to do it, but generally speaking, I'll set the bearing aside for maybe 10 minutes or so, let it dry out. And after it's dried out, I'll come back with the oiler here. And again, this is just generic oil. There are specific products on the market, but this stuff right here works just as well for half the cost. Most of the time, a bottle 1/3 the size of this is going to cost you 8 to 10 bucks, and it's basically a lifetime supply, because all we're going to do is stick the needler down inside here and just give it light coating all the way around. I'll do that. I'll flip it over, Do the exact same thing. And you can still see some grease in there. If I was being more thorough, I'd go back through and I'd probably blast out that grease. But again, just for the example of the video, not required. So we'll just go ahead and go all the way around. And you can actually see it to start to flow out around the side of the bearing there. So we know this oil or this bearing is completely oiled, and we're ready to reinstall our seals. And our seals basically have an inside and an outside, and the outside is just your solid green, and then the inside you can see where the races and the bearing itself has been riding on there. And I'll push the where it's been riding back down on top of the bearing again. And again, I'll take my hobby knife and I'll just start to press around the bearing circumference and just seat it down in there. And it doesn't have to be tight, it doesn't have to click, it just fits down in there. That's that. Flip it over, do the exact same thing, make sure our seal is orientated correctly. So we actually have, that's the portion of the seal that sits on the inside of the bearing, and the outside right here. Again, that just pops right back in place. Use our hobby knife, set it back down in there. And you want to be careful with your hobby knife not to press too hard or you'll go right through the seal. Short of that, that bearing is cleaned and oiled and ready to go, fresh install. Again, this is a brand new bearing. You can do this with old bearings, you can do it with new bearings. You do not have to have the bearing blaster. That just makes life a lot easier. You can pull your seals off and just spray it with some brake clean or again, nitro force. But this really gets a lot of the grit and grime out of there, especially if it's a used bearing. It's going to blow a lot of that dirt out of there, a lot of the debris out of there. And it's going to save you money in the long run. It's going to save your bearings. It's going to save them from wearing out so quickly and essentially give you longer life of your truck. I do recommend cleaning your bearings. If you're running on-road, maybe every 5 to 6 hours or so of runtime. If you're running off-road, especially the crawler guys, this applies to you. We'll actually probably do a video later on of waterproofing drivetrain components. But generally speaking, I will clean my bearings out in my rigs maybe every time I run or every other time I run, because again, I'm out there for probably hours at a time. So, they get very dirty very quickly. And again, it's just maintenance like that will save you money in the long run. It is time consuming to rip the whole rig down, but at the end, if you have to go through and replace bearings, it will save you money. Again, that is the bearing blaster from RPM. Right around $10 for that piece there, last time I checked. Again, not required. Nice little piece to have there.
Oh, it's nice. I mean, if you're going to maintain your bearings, I would say just go ahead and pick them up. It's not much money, right?
Not much money at all. And again, it's just going to save you money. In the long run, it's going to save you money.
Yep. 3, 2, 1. All right. That's about it for Colin's bearing maintenance video. Hope you all enjoyed. I think he has some other words and advice he wants to pass on to you before we end the video.
Absolutely. So there's two options. The option one that I just showed you, where you clean out your bearings and save your money, and it's more maintenance, it's more time consuming. I'm not gonna lie, it takes time to do it. The other option, and admittedly the more expensive option, is to go out and just buy a whole new bearing kit. Boca sells them, Avid Racing sells them, a few other brands out there, Fast Eddie, I believe. This particular kit is for the Axial Wraith. It is right around $70. And again, it comes with the Boca Green Seal bearings. They are nice bearings. Again, if you do not clean these, they will not last very long, and you'll be back in, and you'll be spending another $70 for a bearing kit. So again, up to you guys. You can spend a little time cleaning out your rigs, your on-road cars, whatever you have, save some money. Or you can come in and talk to me. We can talk about bearing kits. Choice is yours.
Yep. So just to give a little shout out to the owner of Hobby Hanger. He knows that we record videos in here, and I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you allowing us to do that. If you live in the area, anywhere 2 hours of DC, I would recommend coming to check out this hobby shop. For the local area, it's one of the best. It's one of the most complete stocked hobby shops that we have right here. So I can't think of any other places around. There was another one, but it's closed now. So
And that's the thing. I mean, these shops they're few and far between, and we can sit as an employee here and as a manager here, we can sit here and speculate as to why that is. But it comes down to the support of local customers, and even some non-local customers. And we're very, very appreciative of them. And again, we're appreciative of the owner of the shop here allowing us to do this little how-to tech setup. So thank you to the owner of Hobby Hanger.
Yeah, and I was speaking with him tonight, and he is working on getting his online stuff set up more, so that if there's anything that you see that we use as far as tools or RC or anything like that, eventually, hopefully, it'll be available to you online, and you'll be able to get everything that we have. So
Absolutely.
all right, well, that's going to end it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Colin still doesn't have his outro. He's working on it. I told him it'll just fall into place sometime. I don't know why I started doing the Ben out thing, but it's just my thing now. So, all right, have a good day, morning, noon, night, whatever it is for you. Ben, out.
Take it easy, guys.